Welcome to Mineral Talks Live, the monthly live mineral webinar that brings you in-depth and in-person interviews with mineral people from around the world. Mineral Talks Live is brought to you by a joint effort among the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, the SMMP, and BlueCap Productions. Tune in on the first Wednesday of every month and stay connected to your mineral world. Now, broadcasting live from beautiful Honolulu, Hawaii, the land of aloha, ukuleles, and shakas, this is Mineral Talks Live.
Hi! Well, it's April, and that means happy spring to all of us here in the Northern Hemisphere. For those of you joining us from the Southern Hemisphere, happy fall to you. Welcome to Mineral Talks Live, the #1 mineral talk show on the internet. I'm your host, Brian Swoboda, and I make up 1/3 of the absolutely brilliant Mineral Talks Live team here. The other 2/3 of our dynamic team are the stunning Dr. Raquel Alonso Perez from the Mineralogical and Geological Museum at Harvard University, and the ravishing Dr. Eloise Gaillou from the Society of Mineral Museum Professionals, also known as the SMMP. For those of you tuning in for the first time, Mineral Talks Live is a monthly mineral talk show that airs live on the first Wednesday of every month. Throughout our 85 shows, we've remained a majority female-owned endeavor, and we bring you monthly interviews with some of the best curatrix, curators, collectors, dealers, miners, researchers, artists, and media people in the mineral world. If you happen to have missed any of our past interviews, no worries. There's a complete list of all those episodes along to links to those interviews at the URL at the bottom of the screen. One of the things that makes this program unique is that it's not only a live show, but it's a show where you get to interact with our guests. All you have to do to participate is to type your comments in the chat or the Q&A features, both of which are located at the bottom of your Zoom window. They're even located at the bottom of your Zoom window. The chat feature allows you to instantly send messages to everyone watching the live show, so we encourage you to be as active as you'd like in the chat while we're talking. And while our guests and I generally don't see your messages during our conversation, throughout the show, both Raquel and Eloise will be monitoring the chat area and will be very active there. Occasionally, they may even interject a question or two during the interview. So don't be shy if you want to ask something. Also, when you log on, we ask you to send a message to everyone letting us know where you're tuning in from so we can see how far around the world we're reaching. If you happen to have a question directly for our guest, or maybe it's a bit more detailed or needs a little bit longer answer, go ahead and use the Q&A feature and we'll get to those questions at the end of the show. Finally, towards the end of the program, you'll see a window pop up on your screen. This is our quick fire 5 questions segment to see how well all of you know our guests. It's just a fun way to get to know our guests a little bit better, so go ahead, play along. This can be a great icebreaker when you see our guests at the next mineral show. Now, for today's show, we've got a solid gold guest straight from the eastern side of the Sierra Nevada mountains, Reno, Nevada. Tucked away in the biggest little city in the world is a mineral dealer who many of you may have seen at all the major American mineral shows. I'm talking about Miner's Lunchbox and the man who started it all, Mr. Scott Werschky. Scott, how you doing today, buddy?
Doing well. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, thank you for coming on the show, Scott. Really appreciate it. I've been a big fan of yours for a long time. For the viewers watching right now who may not be familiar with you, I'm going to ask you this one question. What do you do, Scott?
Yeah, you stumped me with that a minute ago. So, it took my parents about 20 years to figure out what I do. And I finally showed up at their house one time with a box, a mineral flat with about 10 kilos of crystalline gold. And they finally decided that I actually have a real business. So mostly I just, I work with my passion. And I love minerals. I love collecting minerals. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to make a living, bringing them to market.
I love it. You're living the dream. Scott, let's turn back the clock and have you tell us what was your very first exposure into minerals that got you hooked, that eventually led you down this road?
I think that was kind of multifaceted, but I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And as you well know, there's a lot of, famous mineral localities nearby. It was kind of funny. We were on a Boy Scout camp out probably in the late 60s. And we were up at Crystal Peak and there's crystal shards all over the surface everywhere, and the scout leader is digging a hole for the latrine and pulled out a smoky quartz group. And
No kidding.
we thought, oh, he staged it, but no, it was actually real. And I think that was my first, real exposure to digging in the field. And then after that, I was after graduating with a degree in geology, I was working for the U.S. Geological Survey in Denver. And one of the guys working there was an avid mineral collector. And he started showing me minerals that were unbelievable. And to this day, I haven't seen the match to some of them. And I was fortunate enough, I was working up in Washington, and on Glacier Peak, I found a scheelite crystal on, euhedral scheelite crystal on quartz. And I had no idea what it was. I mean, because I'm a typical geologist, we don't really understand what minerals are. And so I took it to this guy, and he said, this is this is one of the best scheelites ever found in North America. Would you sell it? And I said, well, no, why would I do that? And they said, would you trade for it? And I said, well, maybe. And he gave me an Anganja cuprite that was about 8 centimeters across, single crystal, beautiful thing, which after I started the mineral business, I needed money and I sold it. And to this day, I regret it. But those were instrumental in getting me hooked on minerals.
Well, Scott, I think you redefined the term bathroom rock with that smoky quartz that was discovered during your Boy Scouting days.
Yeah.
So you were studying geology. What got you into geology? I find it interesting that you were a geologist, but you weren't interested in minerals. It barely even hit your radar. What got you into geology?
Actually, I always wanted to be a marine biologist, but growing up in a landlocked state, it's a little difficult. And I went to college. Actually, I went up to University of Colorado in Boulder, principally for the rock climbing, because Boulder Canyon and El Dorado Canyon are premier rock climbing localities, and that was my real passion at the time. And,
right on.
So I was trying to get my prerequisites out of the way so I could go to Scripps or Woods Hole and pursue oceanography. And I took a geology class as an elective, and the professor was absolutely incredible. And to this day, he's the best single professor I ever had. And he just lit a fire in me. And next thing you know, I had a degree in economics and then went back for graduate school. Or economic geology.
Wow, that's fascinating to me that you were going in the direction of marine biology and then did this complete about face and went into geology. Talk about lighting a fire. That must have really been something that drew you away. I know that you're a scuba diver, as am I, and I've often, in my younger days, played with the idea of going into marine biology. So I totally get that desire to move in that direction, but to completely about face and do geology, that's fascinating. So at some point, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It was science-based, and I think that's really
Sure.
what I was it.
Yeah. So at some point, you went from collecting minerals to deciding that, oh, this might be a good idea for me to be a mineral dealer. Tell us about that shift.
Yeah, that was a process that took a while to accomplish, but I had been working and living in Mexico. And I was always coming across good minerals, and I would bring them back to Nevada. And Harvey Gordon, the local mineral dealer, who many of you may remember, would buy everything that I got, and I would keep a couple pieces for myself, and I would sell them. So I had an inkling that there was a way to capitalize on these things. And then after, I don't know, 15 years of doing exploration, there was a downturn in the mining economy. And the company I was working for decided to sell off to become a Canadian company rather than a US based mining company. And so they laid us all off. And I took that opportunity along with the severance package they gave me, and I started the mineral business. And the way I did that was I called up Rock Courier, and Rock turned me on to some contacts to buy minerals in Peru. And I really owed my entire business to Rock Courier because he was extremely helpful for that.
You know, rock was such an important part to our entire community. One of my greatest regrets is that we did not start Mineral Talks Live early enough to have done an interview with Rock. That would have been an absolutely incredible show.
I would have taken 3 years to do that interview because he had so many great stories.
Totally. He would have been like, every 6 months, we've got Rock Courier back on the show. And I don't think anyone would ever get bored with that.
Absolutely.
So, Scott, you're very well known as an expert in crystallized gold. Did you start off when you started your mineral dealer life? Did you start off as an expert in gold specimens and then grow into worldwide minerals, or was it kind of the other way around that you got into overall mineral dealing and then started focusing on gold specimens?
Well, I pretty much started with the minerals. Obviously, I had a lot of knowledge with gold, but most of the gold that geologists look for nowadays, or certainly in the 90s then, were microscopic gold. And so the chances of actually finding good mineral specimens was pretty scarce. I mean, it just didn't happen. So I started the mineral business, and then all of a sudden gold started coming out of the Round Mountain mine. And that's where my contacts with the gold industry and the chief geologist at Round Mountain was a good friend of mine. And so I got hooked up with that pretty tightly. And that really launched me into being a gold dealer. I always thought of myself as a mineral dealer. So probably 80% of my efforts were in minerals and 80% of my profits came from gold.
Interesting. And did your passion in gold grow the more that you started dealing in it, or has it always been kind of at the same level?
Oh, my interest has certainly expanded with it because I really like the worldwide localities of gold. Obviously, being based here in Reno, right in the center geographically between the California Mother Lode and the productive mines of Nevada. So I'm really well situated for getting things from the Western US more than say Australia or Brazil.
Okay. So do you have connections with some of the different mining companies that are working those properties in both Nevada and California that you would be one of the first people that they would call, so then you can rush out there and take a look at what they found?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have contracts with some of the mines to get specimens. Most prominently was the Fire Creek mine, which is now closed. And unfortunately, they did not have the economic success they were hoping for, but there were some fantastic specimens that came from the mine. And I have a contract with that mine and all the mines from that company.
Okay. Was there one particular time that sticks out most in your mind when you got a call from one of the mines and you rushed out there and you saw the piece and it just confirmed everything that you were doing was moving in the right direction?
Well, Fire Creek was a classic example. They shot around and there was this chunk of gold hanging from the muck, in the debris up on the back of the stope. And
so it was still hanging on the wall.
Still hanging on the wall. And there's we'll see a picture later. This is one of the finest gold specimens ever found, I think, anywhere.
My God. And so you got there, you saw it hanging from the wall, you extracted it and just took a look at it. And I could imagine your mind just exploded.
Yeah, it was a piece, I mean, like this big. And so now it's like, but it's really spectacular.
Is that in a private collection, or where is that if anyone wanted to see that?
Actually, one part of it is in a private collection, actually a couple parts. And then one of them was just recently purchased by the Smithsonian.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. So maybe we'll see it on display soon.
Yeah.
Cool. So now, Scott, in the last few years, we've seen a major shift in the way that business is conducted in Tucson. One of the epicenters of that shift has been Mineral City. Tell us a little bit about how you got involved and where you're going with Mineral City in the future.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's actually a change in the way business is done in Tucson. It's more a change in venue. If you look back at the history of Tucson, my first Tucson was 1985, and it was at the Desert Inn. And the Desert Inn was really hopping place for a number of years, and then it went via urban renewal, and Marty moved the show over to the Executive Inn, and that lasted for 10 years or so. And then, when that contract failed, they moved over to the Inn Suites.
Mm-hmm.
Then at the Inn Suites, you could see, basically, I think the hotel was being managed to maximize cash flow and not put anything into renovation or upkeep of the hotel. And it was literally falling apart around the mineral dealers. So it was pretty obvious that it wasn't going to last forever. And so people were looking for other venues. And I had a business partner, friend, and collector, Dan Kennedy, and he and I had been looking for places to move into a mineral venue in Tucson. Aside from that, some guys who were thinking outside of the box, like Tomek Prosker and Manuele Marini, they convinced Graham Sutton into building a building, specifically for mineral dealers. And so that was actually building A of Mineral City. Well, when I saw that get built, it was not a big step to realize that really could work out as a good business model. So mm-hmm. Dan and I acquired the building just to the north of that, and we actually brought Graham in. We gave him a percentage of the project in order to build it out for us. It was an existing industrial building, and so we just cut it up into spaces for mineral dealers. And then the next year, we bought the property to the east, which went all the way up to Oracle. And we built 2 new buildings and then renovated some old brick buildings. And then the next year, building G came available. We acquired that, and we subdivided that out and built that into mineral space. So it's really turned out to be, like you say, the epicenter of the mineral world in Tucson. And there's several other venues that have been built in the area. And I think it's really a great thing having multiple owners in the area. I think it adds strength to the whole neighborhood. And I think that the neighborhood will continue to grow.
I think it will too. And when I'm saying that there's a shift in the way that business has been done in Tucson, what I'm referring to is the fact that for so long, the satellite shows have existed in hotels all around Tucson. And now all the major mineral shows are no longer in the hotels. Even the Westward Look show is, that's gone. And so the fact that now dealers have spaces in Tucson that are basically 365 days a year. They can open up whenever they want, and they can leave their cases in place. I think that's really kind of shifted what's happened in Tucson. So I love seeing what you guys are doing. And I think a lot of people know that BlueCap Productions does the show guide for Mineral City. And so when we refer to Mineral City, it's actually a really, it's bigger. It's basically sold as like a whole destination, but it goes back to the multiple different owners of buildings in that general area. And I think they all work well together, and together it elevates the visibility and the experience of people going there.
Yeah, and the fact that it's owned by mineral people for mineral people, I think it has a much better chance of having longevity. It's not like it's a hotel where they're trying to maximize cash flow and they don't care if the thing falls apart. As you've seen with the changes that Graham and I are making, there's only so much you can do with the space, but we condemned one of the rooms, and we made the stope with a gathering area, and we have a lot of ideas of how to improve the venue, and maybe try to make it like Ian's, which is just a beautiful facility.
Yeah, absolutely. You also have concerts there. Last year you had Evan Jones with his what's the name of his band? It's the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, the Grateful Dead.
Extra Ticket. That's what it is. And then this year you had the Pink Floyd tribute band playing. What's the future of Mineral City? What are you guys planning? How is it going to expand? What are some of the new amenities that you're planning on adding?
Well, we want to have another party, and we're asking for recommendations. I was thinking of changing up a little bit, maybe having like a bluegrass band in there. But
nice.
Any of the viewers have an idea who they might recommend, we're up for suggestions. As far as additional growth, we have some ideas, but there's nothing in the works at this point.
Okay. Well, now speaking of the future of Miner's Lunchbox with the Werschky family is still growing, but you got a new rising star in that family. Tell us about Leighton, your son, and his involvement in the business.
Yeah, well, this is my favorite subject. I mean,
good for you.
I'm really blessed. I used to think I knew how to do the mineral business and all that. And when I brought Leighton into it, he has a natural ability. I think he has a far more artistic creativity side to him. And so putting displays out and things, he's way better at it than I ever was. And obviously being younger, he's better at the technology parts of it. So it's actually really exciting to me to have somebody coming along, and he'll be taking over the whole thing.
Super. And his knowledge of minerals is growing year by year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He's working at it hard. I mean, he does a lot of reading on it, and he's looking at minerals constantly. And he would probably be standing in the background right now, but he's on a sales trip. I think he's in Arizona right this minute.
Fantastic. And I know he's heavily involved with the young mineral collectors, so he couldn't be involved with a better group. They're a great bunch of collectors.
Well, it's funny that he's really has a passion for this, and it didn't really start out that way, because he got a degree in geology from Mackey School of Mines at the University of Nevada, and he wanted to do exploration, and I was actually lining him up a job with a friend of mine to work down in Ecuador, because Leighton really likes the idea of traveling. But I needed a little bit of help, and I kind of sandbagged him a bit. I said, if you help me out, you can go to the Munich show with me and help me there. And then after the Munich show, he traveled through Eastern Europe and then made a big loop and ended up in Spain. And he decided that this mineral life is really not half bad. You get to travel, you get to, it's not like having a real job. It's kind of living the dream. And the rest is history.
I'm going to put it out there that his experience in Spain might have been that final nail in the coffin. And I'm sure Raquel's sitting there in the background laughing, going, "Yes, España."
I think he was in
Scott.
Catalan.
Okay. All right. There you go. Scott, I know that we've got a bunch of photographs here of some pieces that you've sent us. And we're going to start off with the field collecting because that's kind of how you started off back in your Boy Scout days. So let me pull up the first photograph that we have here and tell us about this piece.
Well, I found that that's a pyritized clam. It's probably less than 10,000 years old, although I don't know for sure. But it actually came from hot springs on the Alaska Peninsula. And I was working out there for the U.S. Geological Survey in 1980 or 81. And we came across a hot spring, and I wanted to sample the debris or the muds around the hot springs to see if it might be metalliferous. And so I stuck a shovel into the hot spring and started pulling out these clam shells. So I think the logical explanation was that the Aleut Indians for the last maybe 10,000 years or so have been collecting the clams on the coast and then walking inland and cooking them in the hot springs.
Oh, interesting. So it was basically a kitchen, a Native American kitchen.
Yeah, yeah.
That is cool. All right, what about this piece here?
Well, I've done a lot of collecting all over the world, and and people ask about my mineral collection, and I really half of my collection is self-collected, and it's really the most important part to me. By and large, the all my good minerals I actually had to purchase, but this is kind of an exception. This is from Wolfram Camp in far north Queensland, and I became friends with the claim holder, and we went out one year and went into one of the old mines and took explosives and drilled and shot pillars and pulled out specimens like this. This one's about almost 15 centimeters across.
Scott, talk to us about the difference that you feel between the specimens that you self-collect and specimens that you would find and buy like at a mineral show. You put a lot of emphasis on self-collecting, and I want viewers who are not familiar with that to really kind of understand the thought or the emotions behind that.
Well, it's just a personal choice. I mean, you can amass great collections in any, by just going out and buying it. For me, a lot of it is the hunt. I like to collect them myself because I like the outdoors. I like to go into the old mines, and fortunately, I live in the Western U.S. where we have a lot of mines, and we can do that. But I've also traveled all over the world doing the same thing. But for me, there's a ranking. The pieces that I collected myself are probably have the most importance to me. And then after that, it's say I'm traveling somewhere and I am able to buy a nice specimen from say a Berber in Morocco or from one of the miners in China. If there's a story behind it, I just like it more because I look at a mineral and I can see the intrinsic beauty of the mineral, but when I look at my collection, I also see a story behind every one of those pieces.
Right on. It's a whole storybook that's on display for you. So as you go through and you're viewing your minerals, it's recalling different events in your life, kind of just, random access memory situation.
Which is getting increasingly difficult to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. But a lot of people when they're doing self-collecting, there's this thrill that they have knowing that theirs are the first eyes that have ever seen that piece. Do you find that is true with you as well?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like when I was doing exploration, uh, probably the most fun exploration I ever did was in in the high Andes of Chile. We went out on horseback for 10 days at a time and looking at land that no white man had ever seen. Certainly nobody with modern exploration knowledge. And so the sense of discovery was greater for those trips that I did there than anywhere else in the rest of my career. And the same thing goes with the minerals. When you crawl into a mine and you crawl up into this little stope and you're all contorted and you've got 3 inches of clearance to dig, and then you start scraping around and boom, you open up a pocket. I mean, that's exciting.
I love it. And I love that they're all stories that, are connected intricately with the specimens that you have. So tell us the story that you have behind this specimen.
Well, that's a creedite specimen from the Hall Mine in near Tonopah, Nevada. And I worked my first job outside of the U.S. Geological Survey was with Anaconda Mining. And Anaconda owned the Hall Mine. And I was able to go into the mine because they had blasted a bench and there was these great creedite specimens. We'll flash forward a little bit. Anaconda went bankrupt, or they sold out. Arco didn't like their mining venture. The mine was sold to Cyprus, and I befriended one of the guys out there at Cyprus, and they were on care and maintenance, and I talked my way into to go into the mine, and they actually let me take my truck into the mine. And this bench that we had collected before, where I knew there was creedite, had been pretty well picked over by geologists and engineers. But in the back of my truck, I had a ladder, and I was able to lean it up against the high wall. I mean, this is something you can't do nowadays with MSHA regulations, but we just had a field day of collecting. It was the best single day of collecting in my life. There were two of us. We each kept a half a dozen really good pieces, and we sold the rest of it. This is long before I was a mineral dealer, and I think we got $10,000 for the minerals that we sold. I mean, this is in the '80s, so it was a great day of collecting.
That is incredible. I mean, I love that. And that's obviously still in your collection.
Yes, it is.
That is superb. Okay. Hand for size there. These are self-collected. Get out of town.
Yeah, well, it's a great story. It's a mine out near Winnemucca, Nevada, and the way it was discovered was a guy that I know out in Winnemucca had a friend that wanted to go metal detecting, and so he finally lent this friend a metal detector and told him where to go look for gold. And so he went out and he's detecting all day and doesn't find anything. And he's driving out at the end of the day, he looks across the valley and he sees a little prospect up on the far hillside. So he's got a little bit of daylight left, so he drives over there, and there's a really steep hill. So he parks his Jeep outside on a flat spot before that, and he gets his metal detector out and starts trying to ground balance it. And you lift your metal detector up and down, and it keeps going beep, 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 beep. And he looks down, and there's a piece of gold laying on the surface.
Oh my God.
So he got pretty excited, and he drove back into Winnemucca and said, "Hey, look what I found." Well, they went out the next day and they found 500 ounces of gold on the surface.
What? Oh, shit.
Yeah. It's just a narrow little vein. And there was actually a little silver prospect further up the hill. And these guys back in the 60s had taken a bulldozer up and pioneered a road up to this old silver mine. And they broke through this little bitty vein that had no workings on it and didn't even look at it. Well, they found in the dozer berm, there was a 50-ounce chunk of crystalline gold in it. So this was open ground, and these guys staked the claim, and they pulled out somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 ounces of gold. And then, well, one of the guys passed away, one of the partners, another one was ill, so they leased it out, and we acquired the lease and went out there with heavy equipment. You know, we drilled and blasted. We had a excavator and a bulldozer, and then we would remove the material and spread it out and then metal detect it. And the first year we hit one nice pocket, including those pieces that were in my hand. Now, one crystal is it's an octahedron that's two centimeters on edge. It's well,
Scott, these are the crazy stories that people they flip out. I mean, incredible kind of stories. Fantastic.
Yeah, well, it's a great story, and so we were so excited about it. We went out the next season to do the same thing, and we spent $100,000, and we found 3 grams of gold. It doesn't always work out the way you want it to work.
Oh, that's a typical mining story.
Yeah, it's the most expensive gold I ever bought in my life.
I love that. For anyone wanting to get into mining, there's your typical story. All right, Scott, I'm going to go to the next one. I've seen a couple comments in the chat that it's a little bit hard to hear you. So I'm going to ask you to lean forward a little bit, maybe get a little bit closer to your computer so that you're closer to the mic.
Is that better?
I think so. Sounds better to me.
We'll try that. Okay. I see hearts floating up on the side, so I guess that.
Well, no, they're just seeing your face nice and close to the screen, and so they're swooning over you.
You're way too kind. So this specimen, that's barite on fluorite from the Victory and Crystal Adits in southern Illinois. And we went out there back in the 80s or 90s and crawled into one of the old workings and had a great day of collecting and found a bunch of really nice pieces. And that's one that I kept for my collection.
Dynamite. All right. This is the next one that's up.
Well, Peterson Mountain, you know, it's iconic. It's also 30 minutes from my house, which makes it nice. I've collected out there for years and years, originally with Foster Hallman, and a lot of it was just hand digging. Now, Paul Geffner and his group own the claims, and they take heavy equipment out there. And if you ever have an opportunity to go out, I highly recommend it. It's one of the few places for field collecting where you are absolutely guaranteed you're going to find something. You may not find something great, but you will definitely find minerals. Excuse me, I'm just getting over a cold that I got in Tucson.
Yeah, that put me down for a couple of weeks, same kind of thing, but I'd caught it out here. So was this piece before Paul took over the mine, or was this during Paul's time?
This was in Foster Hallman's era.
Okay.
So
all right.
15, 20 years ago.
Dynamite. All right. We've got another one here. Tell us about this.
That's a spessartine garnet from Ely, Nevada. It's another place where you're guaranteed to find minerals if you ever go out into eastern Nevada. It's a fun place to collect.
Can you tell us each time what's the size of it in inches or centimeters for the European geeks?
Yeah. The whole metric thing is kind of funny. When I started working for the USGS in 1980, our directive was to publish everything in metric, and then in parentheses in imperial units. So the second year they said, well, the American reader is not smart enough to understand that, so we did it in inches. And then in parentheses in metric, and then I think after that they just gave up on the metric. I'm sorry, I just don't get it. It just makes so much sense. But
Totally.
that's an aside. That garnet is, boy, I don't have it in front of me. It's probably 1.5 centimeters across.
Thank you.
You know, when I was looking at the thumbnail of this, for some reason, the image of a bear came to my mind.
I love it when rocks get anthropomorphic. Personally, I don't see it, but that's the beauty of it. It's to each individual collector. So I used to fund trips out to buying trips to Tennessee, and went out there several times myself. And one of the miners took me underground during the swing shift. The miners could take family underground, so I became his cousin from the West, and they let me go underground. And he had a little vug that, or what they called bugs, that he'd been collecting for a few days. And so we got it. We went down the skip, got in a tractor, drove around for a while, and there was a pillar, and he had some muck in front of it, and he scraped off the muck. We parked the tractor on the backside of the pillar, and then he says, "Crawl in there." And I said, "Okay." I started to crawl in. He said, "No." I said, "You're not going to like it. You're not going to believe me, but you need to lay down on your back and go in head first." And he said, "Just trust me, it'll work." So I get on my back and I start crawling in, and it drops down at about 30 degrees. So you're upside down and backwards. And I went in about 3 meters, and the whole time, you've got just about a hand's clearance between your chest and the back of this vug, and wondering how I'm going to get out. Well, I got down to the bottom, and the fracture, it hit like a 90-degree fracture to it, and it just opened up, and there were crystals everywhere.
No way.
So I was able to pull this sphalerite piece out, and I have better pieces from Elmwood, but it's self-collected, and it just means a lot to me.
Scott, you're telling all the classic stories, doing a mining operation and finding all this gold, climbing in, through a very narrow passage and coming into this huge chamber where all these crystals are sticking out of the walls. You're living the charmed life, my friend.
Well, I've been pretty lucky with this.
It's a fantastic piece. All right. I love this epimorph with the kind of sugary quartz. Tell us about this.
Yeah, these are quartz epimorphs after barite. It's a surface outcrop near Warm Springs, Nevada, which is about 60 miles east of Tonopah. And it's a great place. There's just a jasperoid, a big fault structure in limestones, and it's mineralized with barite. The largest barite crystals I've seen there are on the order of, I don't know, maybe 35 centimeters long. But mostly it's all corroded, and the really great ones are epimorphs like this with the thin quartz screws, and they're completely hollowed out, and the barite's been etched away. And that piece is I don't know, 6 or 7 centimeters tall.
I love it to self-collect a piece like that. So fantastic. All right, we're going to do the final image, the final piece of your self-collected series, and then we're going to switch gears a little bit. But tell us about this calcite.
This is, I mean, it's just calcite. It's nothing really spectacular, but it was a fun day of collecting. Friends had been into this mine, and so he said, "Well, let's go back out." And we had an old Toyota pickup truck that we had built a boom that stuck out the front about 20 feet out the front of it, with a wheel on the end of it and a really high-end winch with aircraft cable on it. And we built it to look for crystals and mining artifacts. And so we dropped down the shaft. It was an incline shaft, so it was not vertical. And down about, I don't know, 50 or 60 feet down, there was a fracture in the limestone. This is near the Yarrington porphyry copper deposits, just south and east of Reno. And so there's a solution cavity filled with crystals in it. And so we went down on the cable, and then you have to swing back and forth. And you finally swing far enough, you can grab a rock on the side, and you pull yourself into this little solution cavity. And then we unhooked and sent the cable up, and friend would come down. And the collecting was so good. The calcite crystals, calcite or ragnite, whatever, are on a gossan back, and then there was hard limestone, and we would stick a screwdriver behind through the gossan and pop these crystals off.
Oh,
and you could literally collect faster than we could wrap them up. I mean, every spare surface in the mine was filled with crystals, and we would collect and collect, and then we would just wrap and wrap and wrap, and then collect again. And at the end of it, we camped out. We slept on the mine dump. We brought out maybe 40 or 50 banana boxes filled with these things. You put 4 flats of minerals in each one of them. And, just hundreds and hundreds of crystals. It was just really fun collecting. It was a great day.
Oh my God. I mean, again, it sounds like one of those classic dream come true situations. Maybe not so much for Raquel, but definitely for mineral collectors. Now, at the start of the story, you had mentioned that you were also looking for mining artifacts. And I know that's another thing that you collect, and you have one there with you. Why don't you share with us how you got into collecting mining artifacts and what you have there?
Well, mining artifacts was this same little pickup truck with the boom on it that I was talking about. I got the idea that it gives me access to mines that no one else has access to. And since I have the geology background, I contacted a mining company, and they started paying us actually pretty well in order to drop down these old abandoned mines and map the geology and take samples. And so I had a contract down in the Goldfield district, and we dropped down hundreds and hundreds of shafts in there, and we started finding mining artifacts. And you'd find, an old dynamite box or something like that. About 1 out of 10 shafts you went into. Well, we dropped into this one shaft, and it was a 2-compartment shaft with wood lagging in it, and some of the debris had broken. Some of the square sets had broken. We shined a light down the shaft, and you look at it, and it's like, oh, it's a 200-foot shaft, fairly typical for Goldfield. But there was so much debris in the haulage way that we decided to winch down the manway. Well, so we winched down the manway and we got to 85 feet, and there was dirt, and that just didn't seem right. And while Well, I'm running the winch at this time, and my buddy says, "Oh, somebody threw their garbage in here. There's some clothes hanging from the square sets," and so we came back up and we repositioned the winch and went back down the other side, and from 85 feet down to 200 feet, the Goldfield Consolidated Mining Company had used that shaft as their own private garbage dump. And so, we got to the bottom, we took some samples, there was a little crosscut, we mapped the geology and we took the samples. We got back up to the surface and found that we were not on the property that of the company we were working for. We were on somebody else's claim. And unintentional, I mean, literally 100 feet onto somebody else's claim. And so I researched the owner who lived in Reno, and we contacted this guy and said, "Hey, we dropped down your mine shaft by accident, and we found all of this quote unquote garbage in here, and we think it's worth some money." And so we actually signed a lease with this guy and proceeded to go out and mine the garbage. So we would go down to Goldfield and we would, map geology till about 6 o'clock at night. And then from 6 till midnight, we put on hazmat suits and respirators and we dropped down the shaft and we essentially underhand stope mined the garbage. We started at the very bottom and then worked our way up. And we found incredible things like 50 pairs of Levi's and mining artifacts and whiskey bottles and wine bottles and things from the Goldfield Consolidated Mining Company Secret Service department, which employed Virgil Earp, Wyatt Earp of fame. And
Sure, yeah.
it was just a really great thing. We found all these mining artifacts and I just got excited about mining artifacts. So that even though we made a lot of money mining the garbage, it's cost me a lot more in the long run because now I buy mining artifacts. And so now I try to focus only on candlesticks, which are predominantly Western Americana things, basically mine lights like this one. It's a folding candlestick and it opens up like this. And this one is special because it was the prototype to a candlestick that exists in the Keck Museum at the Mackey School of Mines, and it was made by the blacksmith at the mine in Virginia City, and the one there is embossed in here as a graduation gift for when the mine owner's son matriculated through Mackey School of Mines in 1890, and this is the precursor to it.
Now that looks pretty pristine. Was that ever used, or was that
no,
just like a showpiece?
Yeah, it's a showpiece.
Okay.
Like I say, this one was probably the prototype to it, and then you get some really strange things. Like I like mechanical sticks, and folding sticks are special. So this doesn't look like much, but then that opens up, and then that opens up, and you can open that up, and that goes out there, and then it closes back, and you've got the thumb piece, and this one is embossed. It's some guy by the name of Eugenio Barr made this one. These are all button hinges. It's kind of hard to see, but they're special little buttons you push on them. This one was
sure.
So that, this is a fuse cutter, so you can measure out your fuse and then cut it. And here it's calibrated in inches, Sorry, not metric in these days. So you could measure out your fuse, so you know how much fuse to cut out, and then
Does it have a crimper built into it?
I'm sorry. No,
Does it have a
no crimper on this one.
Okay.
But really unusual thing. And I like the special ones. Like I have one more, the same kind of thing like this. This is a match safe. So it opens up, take a match out there. You'd store them in there. It unscrews here to put your matches in. This was engineered at a 45 so that when you open that up, it stands up vertical, and then it has a hinge. Spike goes out, and then this is gimbaled so that
super. So it could be at any angle.
Stays vertical the whole way, and the match safe is indented so that the spike goes in there. And to me, this is just it's a miracle of engineering, and these things were they pretty much stopped using these in about 1910, which was the advent of carbide.
Okay.
So just some things unusual, but I like them.
I love those. It seems like when you unfold some of those, your next line is, "So, Mr. Bond." All right, Scott, we're going to go back to some specimens. We're going to start with some gold specimens. These are not self-collected, but they are pieces that are in your collection. And I see that we just launched the poll. So, Scott, if that's up on your screen, you can go ahead and close that so that you can see what we're doing. You're not supposed to read those questions. That's
okay.
just for the audience.
I had my glasses on. Yeah.
Darn it. Okay. Well, hey, let's talk about this gold piece.
Okay, this is gold with calcite on epidote from the Olinghouse mine, and which is about 45 minutes from my house. And that piece is at least 15 centimeters across. It's quite large. They look like wires. One of the wires in there, it's kind of hard to see in this photo, but is probably almost 10 centimeters across.
Wow.
Oh, no, I got the size wrong on it. That thing's 35 centimeters across. So they're all very sharp crystals, and mostly elongated cubic cross section, and then they get an octahedral termination on the end. Interestingly, I went out to this mine in the mid 80s. It was being submitted to the company I worked for, and they asked me to go evaluate it. And I went out there, and the geologist, there's a big boulder, and they said, "Here, look at this. See this vein?" He said, "There's a little gold crystal sticking out of it." And, they expect me to work after that. Literally, I spent, an hour, with a geology hammer and pecked out about 30 gold crystals that I subsequently took down to Tucson, probably, in 1985, and sold them. And Lanny Ream wrote them up in Mineral News. So that was my first introduction to mineral sales.
I love it. So your first Tucson, you said, was 85?
Yeah, as a tourist.
Yeah. What was your impression of Tucson back in 85?
Boy, I loved it. The atmosphere around the Desert Inn was incredible. At 2:00 in the morning, you could hardly walk down the hallways. The people are yucking it up and partying and drinking and doing business, and it's just such a change from the latter years in Tucson now, where we're all out entertaining our clients at fancy restaurants and all that, and it's very different, and I kind of miss the old days on it.
I hear you. 100%. All right, we got another great gold specimen here.
Yeah, so that's the wreath of gold from the Fire Creek mine that I was talking about.
Oh, super. Yeah.
Yeah, it's unlike any gold I've from anywhere else I've ever seen. Probably closest to maybe Romanian gold, but so that little garland of gold is 10 centimeters across, and it's on a very thin druze of quartz, which is in general like a half a centimeter thick, and it's on basalt, which is really, really unusual. Basalt is not a very reactive host rock, so it does not often produce epithermal gold deposits. This one, it's kind of hard to see, but if you look on the tips of some of those gold crystals, there's little black spots, and those are all naumanite crystals, silver selenide.
Oh, wow. Yeah. If I kind of get in close, I can see it with my eyes here. Well, versus seeing it with my nose, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a great specimen, and the whole thing. There was two other groups of gold on the same piece that was 25 centimeters tall. It's since been cut down into smaller pieces.
I love it. Okay, we are kind of running out of time, but there are still some pieces I want you to talk about, like this.
Okay, I'll go through them quick. This is just one of the, in my mind, one of the finest pieces that I ever got out of Round Mountain. And the bottom crystal, it's a flattened leaf that's all one crystal. It's about 5 centimeters long, and then the spinel twins sticking up out of it are in the 3 to 4 centimeter range. It's a wonderful piece. It's gone through a couple of hands, and I've tried to buy it back, but it's a little more expensive than when I sold it.
You think?
I think. But it's well worth it. It's a great piece.
Yeah, this is a killer piece. I love this piece.
Yeah, and what's really special about it is that the piece that you just showed sat on top of this with a layer of adularia, which was all altered to cerussite clay. So there was like a couple maybe 5 millimeters of clay, and then right on this surface that you're looking at, there was clay, and then that other piece was perched right on top of it. So they were essentially the same piece. And
so did they end up with the same owner?
No, they did not.
They got to be reunited. You should buy both of them back, and then we'll have you back on the show.
I'd love to do it. I'll be hitting you up for a loan here when we finish.
I hear you. All right, last gold piece that we're going to look at today.
This one, in my mind, was the best piece that came out of Round Mountain. I actually kept that in my collection, and somebody wanted to see it, and I took it to the Denver show, and Keith Proctor heard that I had it, and he came into the booth, and he just stared at it forever. But I wouldn't sell it to him, and it was funny. He was looking at the piece, and with this despondent look because he couldn't own it, and some woman walked by and said, "Is he having a heart attack? Do we need to call the medics?" But, so I've actually had the honor of selling this 3 different times now. So I sold it to Gene Myron once, and then to a collector back east, and then he traded it out, and then I finally sold it to Keith Proctor. So
Keith ended up finally getting it.
He did. Yeah.
I love that. That's terrific. Super. All right, Scott, we're just going to take a look at a few other specimens here before we go into our quick fire 5.
Okay. Perargyrite from Fresnillo. That was in my collection. It's about 7 centimeters tall.
Love it. And then I'm going to jump ahead to this classic ram's horn.
Well, that's just one of my most expensive specimens. I bought that in Bermejillo, Mexico. Oh, no, actually, sorry, in Santa Eulalia. And they were getting a lot of gypsums at the time. And I think I paid a whopping $1.50 for that. It's,
oh, my God. Did you have to take out a loan?
Yeah, I did. I had a price to make. Well, it's 10 centimeters tall. It's not large, but it was just such an aesthetic thing with, complete curls. And I love the piece.
I think that's super. Let's jump to this piece. Just classic.
And Louise, you like this one?
Yes, I do.
The first time I saw one of these fluorites from Puy-Saint-Guilmier, to me, they're the holy grail of fluorite. The color is just so intense and so attractive. And so I have spent a lot of years trying to buy these things. And so I was able to acquire this one. And then my friend Dan Kennedy strong-armed me and made me sell it to him, and I regret it to this day. But I love them. I think they're just the greatest thing on earth.
It just takes your breath away. All right, we're going to go to what many call the Holy Grail here.
Well, this is a fun one. I got this through some mining contacts in La Paz, and it's 5 centimeters tall, doubly terminated, twinned on a little matrix. And there's a collector who I won't mention, and he'll laugh about this thing, because when I offered it to him, he looked at it and he says, "That's $50,000 an inch." And then came back to me afterwards and goes, "Oh man, I'm sorry, Scott. I didn't know how good it was. I should have bought it."
Oh, this was the one that got away.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it, Scott. We can go on and on, but we are a little bit past the hour mark, and we still got a couple more things to do. So now we're going to go into the quick fire 5 question. Okay. So basically, there were 5 questions that we asked all the audience to guess what your answer will be. Each question had 2 answers. All of your answers are correct, and we're going to see how well the guests or the viewers did, how well they predicted what your answers will be. Okay. So I do have to put a notice out there that anyone who gets all 5 of these questions correct, then at the next mineral show, they get a full body 15-second hug from Scott. That's the prize here. You're agreeing to that. Is that right, Scott? Because I'm springing that on you right now.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So again, 5 questions, 2 answers to each. You tell me which answer you resonate with strongest, and all of your answers are correct. We're going to see how well the viewers did. You ready?
Okay. All right. Hit me with them.
Okay. Question number 1. Collectible, a carbide lamp or a goniometer?
Goniometer, absolutely.
Goniometer, way to go. Question number 2. These get sort of progressively harder. Your preference, California gold or Nevada gold?
It's got to be Nevada.
Nevada, okay.
Nevada, not Nevada. Come on, buddy.
Nevada. One time I was coming across the border, coming back to America from the San Francisco mine, and I'd been living there so long just speaking Spanish that when they asked me where I was going, I said, Tucson. And the border agent just kind of stopped and shook his head. He said, can you lose the accent? So I feel you. I feel you, man. Okay, this is probably the toughest question. Okay, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, best attire when collecting in Australia, full coverage or the full Monty?
Who told you this story?
Hey, I do my research, man.
That's a hard one to answer because the best attire is clothing, but birthday suits got to be the answer, I guess.
Oh, full Monty, yes. Okay.
You have to tell people the story, or is that?
We'll tell it when we get to see how people have answered.
Okay.
All right. Preference of red wines, Napa Valley or Spanish Rioja. And I do have to remind you that 1/3 of our team is Spanish, so answer carefully.
Lo siento mucho, Raquel. I like the cabs over the Rioja.
Okay, so we're doing Napa Valley.
Sorry.
Final question, compressed air or nitrox?
Oh, nitrox.
Nitrox all the way, my man. Okay, we have all 5 answers from Scott. Eloise, who's doing? Are we doing Eloise or Raquel today?
We can do Raquel because she has the Rioja there. So
okay. What,
Yes,
you mean she's drinking Rioja right now?
Raquel, I would be happy to drink a Rioja with you. That's not a problem.
We shall into. So I learned a lot. I didn't know all about mineral city and all your mineral collecting. So not my type of life, but amazing.
See, I love it. Even one of our partners is being educated here. All right, let's go through and see what the viewers have guessed on Scott's answers here, and then we'll go to the Q&A. So question number 1, carbide lamp or goniometer. Scott immediately went to goniometer. What did our viewers say?
I think we confused then the carbide lamp because of all the thing what you are showing us. So yeah.
Sure. Okay. All right. Question number 2, California gold or Nevada gold? Scott felt obliged to go with Nevada gold. What did our viewers say?
80% Nevada gold.
Okay. Am I still saying it wrong? Whatever.
Even the Latina accent said Nevada.
Nevada. Nevada. All right. Question number 3, best attire when collecting in Australia. Full coverage or full Monty? Scott went with full Monty. What did our viewers say?
Full coverage.
Full coverage.
Scott, we want the story. Yes, please.
You want the story?
We want the story.
So I knew the caretaker at the Red Dome mine, and I'd been out to the Red Dome mine about 10 times to collect, and I was chasing after the cuprites because I think it produces the finest cuprites in the world, and I had an idea where they might be, and so we went out there, and the haulage road. It's a very steep open pit, and it's almost like a open pit shaft, I would say, and they had a big flood and it had washed out the haulage road. So we rappelled down the first part of the mine to get down to the haulage road. And we walked down the haulage road and we get to the bottom and there's a lake, and I can see a spot that I want to go to, but there's a lake out there, and we're a long ways from anywhere, and I'm with two friends collecting, and they're somewhere else in the mine, and so I'm kind of looking around and I said, there's nobody here. So I stripped down and I swam across the lake, and then I climbed up the vertical high wall, and I found this vug filled with crystals, and so I scream at the guys and like, I found it, it's great. So unfortunately, just calcites, not cuprites. But so I'm collecting calcites en natural, and I'm totally happy because there's nobody out there. And all of a sudden, my friends find a way to get out to this spot on an old pipe, and they climbed around the mine, and they got to me. And all of a sudden, it became less comfortable collecting.
Well, that lake water was cold.
It's the tropics. It's not so bad. So I had to jump. I had to jump back in the lake and swim across and put my shorts back on. So, yeah, that's the first time I've ever collected en natural, and I'll probably not do it again.
Oh, I was going to say perhaps not the last time.
Fortunately, no cameras.
You know, we know people in the Rioja region that have pyrite mines. Maybe we can arrange a Rioja tasting while you revisit collecting in the buff.
You can't.
No cameras. All right, moving on to question number 4. Red wine, Napa Valley, or Spanish Rioja?
Napa Valley.
Oh, everyone guessed Napa Valley. Fantastic. Okay. And finally, compressed air or nitrox. Scott went with nitrox. What did the viewers say?
Compressed air.
Compressed air.
I know. We didn't do this well with you, Scott. I don't know.
No. We did okay, but there's 2 out of 5. So Scott's quite relieved that he doesn't have to do 15-second full body hugs to anybody out there.
I should have put my Venmo account out and told people to send me a deposit for the correct answer.
I love it. Okay. Questions and answers. What do our viewers have any questions they want Scott to answer?
Alan has a question. Can you get a 6-second hug? Alan Hart, I mean.
How many did he get right?
Alan, how many did you get? He got 2. He got 2 right. 2?
I don't know. What do you think, Scott?
It sounds like 2 seconds.
2-second hug.
Okay. Q&A. Well, actually, the questions got answered mostly in the chat. I had someone had a question from the very beginning, and it's a sneaker question. What kind of things do you have in the boxes behind you on the right, on your right?
I love it.
On the flats over there.
Over there?
Yes, you have a series of flats. What do you have?
I tried to pick up. You weren't supposed to see those. That is pieces from the George Witter's collection that I haven't processed yet. So I was able to buy George's collection last year, and there's some really fun things in there.
When are you going to bring those to market?
Probably Denver.
Denver. All right, people.
Great Colorado pieces. George had things from all over the world, but nice Colorado suite, nice Brazil suite, and his premier thing was Tri-State District.
Oh, fabulous!
Some of that to Tucson.
So what's on the display then? What do you have on display in your 2 cabinets? And I saw a third one on your right. What do you display there?
There's safes over there.
Oh, this is the safe. Okay.
Rotate around.
Oh, nice. Look at that. Wow. There's more than 2. Okay.
That over there is all self-collected personal stuff. Everything else was, it's just inventory because I'm in the office.
Cool. Okay, so thank you. Greg had a question regarding a book. Can you recommend him a book on Western mining history? He has been inspired by the history of the Cyprus Mining Company, and is asking you if you had any other recommendation.
Ooh, no, unfortunately, I nothing comes to mind. There are a lot of good books. Wayne Light would be a good person to ask for something. especially for old classic ones. But I like some of the old monographs that are, late 1800s. I enjoy looking at those.
Now, Scott, I think it was around 2013 or 14 that you had released a book that you worked on with Joaquin Collin on gold. Is that right? About time?
Yeah.
Is that still available?
No, unfortunately, we didn't print enough copies. That sold out almost immediately.
Wow. And that was at the Munich show that you released it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really too bad. And then Joaquin did another iteration of that.
Right.
And then there will be another book coming out that Terry Wallace is spearheading, I think, which will be much more scientific, which will, I think, be a really impressive monograph.
Oh, that'll be super. He's probably working with Gloria on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I have A Crystal was asking, what are some notable minerals from New England you have handled or sold, processed in your laboratory, or kept in your for yourself?
Well, I don't have any from my personal collection from New England. I'm woefully remiss in that. But I had a tourmaline from, I think it was Mount Micah, that a local guy is kind of new to the area. He came into the office and he said, I have a tourmaline and I'd like to have you guys clean it up. And so it's in this big roll of bubble wrap. And he basically lays it on the concrete floor and rolls it out. And, we're thinking, oh, it's going to be garbage. Well, it's a gem green tourmaline, this big around and this tall. And it's the best one I've ever seen. And he just rolls it out onto the concrete. I'm going, oh my God. And it's fantastic. And it's still in his private collection.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, Gerhard Wagner as an insider. Do you want to hear it? When Scott brings a bottle of whiskey to Germany, do the customs open the bottle for control? And he's saying, you know the answer.
I know the answer, and all I can say is practical jokes have a way of coming back to the perpetrator. So. I was expecting one, Gerhard.
Okay, we have answered all the questions from the Q&A. Raquel, did you see any other questions from the chat? No, I think we answered. I mean, we have a lot of comments. Great job, Scott. Wow, thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing your adventures. Fascinating. Saying thanks for sharing the stories and great time with you, Scott. Great talk. So a lot of compliments, but I think we answered the questions pretty much right away. So thank you very much for being with us today. That was wonderful.
Hey, Scott, what shows do you do? Do you exhibit at any of the European shows, or is it just the American shows?
Just the American shows. For several years, I would actually get a case in friends' booths in Europe, but it's just too much work. And really, I like to go there to shop in the wine and the food and, and buy minerals. And if I were to actually be selling over there, I think I wouldn't enjoy my life nearly as much. So, doing Tucson and Denver is enough for me. And I no longer Springfield show or the California shows, but we have a much larger presence online now that Leighton's been working at that. And,
fantastic.
I think you will continue to see more and more things from Leighton, and he's doing a great job.
Super. Yeah, no, I've seen a lot of the posts that he's done on Instagram where he holds up pieces and has very beautiful backgrounds. And I really love when he does that. It's a little bit different than other things that we see. So, high kudos to him. So the next time people can see you will be at the new Hard Rock Summit later this year.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think this is going to be a positive step forward.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And I'll see you there because we're going to do live from the 2024 Hard Rock Summit show. So cool. All righty. Well, what's that? No, it was just me. Okay.
As usual.
What? Huh? All righty. Well, that's going to be it for our show today. Thank you to all of you viewers for tuning in. Make sure to tune in next month. We're going to have another exciting guest. Scott, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time, brother.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Y'all be well. Aloha.
Bye-bye.